Welcome back. Today we're looking at the second part of the Etude number 18 in B flat major. You may recall that Etude number 18 has a lot of notes. It's very fast. Most of it is in the key of B flat, but some of it is in the key of F major. And today, in the second part, that's the part we're going to be looking at. A lot of it is in the key of F major. Measure 9, 10, and 11 start with a series of arpeggios in the key of B flat, and then there's a key change to the key of F major that ends with a towering arpeggio from the low C up to the super F. This is probably the hardest part of the etude, and you're going to be spending about a third of your time just practicing these measures. First, let's review the scale material used. The beginning is in the key of B flat major, so we're going to have some very fast passages that involve forked F, and then we have a section in F major, including an F major scale, so we've got to think of E natural in the middle of that. So let's review a little bit the B flat major scale. Forked F is certainly okay because of the speed, and then the F major scale. Please review those scales before you start to practice this etude. Now let's review the altissimo notes that are used in this section. The first altissimo note we come across is D flat 6, the high D flat. The fingering for that note is as follows. Second and third finger of the left hand, first finger right hand, and the low C key. That's the standard fingering, and that's the fingering you should use. You'll notice it goes from a strange arpeggio, B flat, D flat, E, G, B flat, up to the high D flat. It's awkward. It will have to be practiced, of course, many times. We also have F6 at the end of this section. The standard fingering for high F is as follows. Octave key in the back, half hole, the second finger of the left hand, the A flat key, and the second and third fingers of the right hand. Your private teacher may also ask that you include the E flat key to bring the pitch up, but my experience is for many students this is not necessary. If your oboe has a third octave key, that third octave key can be used for high F, and it will bring the pitch up quite nicely. Let's listen a moment to what that would sound like. Next, let's take a look at the arpeggios that are used in this section. The first arpeggio is a B flat major arpeggio, almost 2 octaves. Because of the speed, forked F is probably going to be the finger of choice to be used for the B flat arpeggio. By the time you work it up to a performance tempo, a listener will not be able to tell that you're using forked F. The next line has an E flat major arpeggio. It's not too difficult. The next arpeggio, however, is quite challenging. Its full name is the E diminished 7 arpeggio. It's a 4-note arpeggio comprised of E and G and B flat and D flat. And then, to make matters more difficult, it repeats the arpeggio starting on a different note. Altogether, that section will sound like this. These arpeggios will need to be practiced a little bit every day until you have the muscle memory in place to play them without thinking about it. Okay, let's take a look now at the awesome arpeggio in measures 15 and 16, an F major arpeggio that goes from the low C to the super F. At first, you're probably going to need to practice the basic arpeggio. And then I recommend strongly that you use forked F going from F to low C to F because of speed that's involved. The F at the top of the staff is probably best played as regular F. So you'll be practicing these measures many times. And you'll have to be patient. It's going to take a long time to be able to play it fast. As a reminder, begin your practice session with a warm-up. Long tones, then the B flat major scale and F major scales before you start to tackle this etude. The scales will get your brain used to the vocabulary that you use for these measures. Now let's take a look at the counting that's involved because there are some ties over the bar. First step is always take the ties out and do the counting. So, slow the tempo down just a little bit. And let's try the counting together without the ties. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, ready. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1. You'll notice it's the same pattern. The ties interrupt the pattern. Now let's try it with the ties in place. 1, 2, 3, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1. Please note the breath mark in the middle. You'll take an entire eighth note for that breath, and you'll need it as well. Now let's look at the second half. There's a trill on count 4, and then it repeats the 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, ready. Trill. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1. The rhythm, of course, is very constant there at that point. Let's take a moment and look at the unusual technique in two places necessary for this section. One is the trill at measure 12. You're going to play E, F, E, F, E, then the grace notes D, E, and F again. Slowly, it will sound something like this. You'll notice the trill and the grace notes that follow should be even together. The other unusual technique aspect is measure 15, which we discussed in the F major arpeggio, forked F, where you must go back and forth from F to C to F. Now let's take a look at the technical aspects at a micro level because of the difficulty. We'll start with measure 9. We have articulation that's odd in the middle. Do, 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 do. Let's hear it with the metronome. Do, 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 do. It's an unusual articulation. You have to retongue in the middle of a beat. Now at measure 10, we have a similar rhythm that was tied over from the previous measure. You'll notice after the tie, the rhythm is and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. With air, that would be 1, 2, 3, 1, go. A lot of syncopation. It will sound something like this. Now let's take a look at measures 11 and 12, that difficult E diminished 7 arpeggio, which starts on the and of count 1. You'll notice the sequence of notes G, E, G, B flat, D flat, E natural, then retongue B flat, D flat, E, G, B flat, finally the high D flat. With air alone, those two measures would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, go. Played, it will sound like this. Now let's take a look at measures 13 and 14. After the trill, you're now in the key of F major. And again, you must tongue on the and of the beat. So let's do air without playing measures 13 and 14. 1, 2, 3, go. You notice on my handwritten comments, I've got a dash written in the middle of the measure so that we don't clip the end of the slur. Therefore, measures 13 and 14 will sound like this. Now for the giant arpeggio in measures 15 and 16. Start with 2 or 3 notes and always practice with the metronome with many reps. I'll give you an idea of a condensed version of how this would work. Etc. It's important to be patient and not try to do the entire arpeggio in one day. Instead, practice a few notes at a time, always with the metronome, and journal your tempo so you know where you left off the day before. You'll notice this section has no dynamic, contrast, or other markings written. It's up to us as the performer to put them in. I have a suggestion already marked in the music that you see where during the diminished 7 arpeggio, we crescendo. I would also suggest to you that during the descending F major scale, you diminuendo a little bit and then use the final arpeggio to crescendo. It is up to us as a performer to create interest for the listener. In order to build good tone quality, also focus on long tones. The first arpeggio, start with B flat. Think of vibrato as being present in your sound all the time, even if you move fingers. Then the E flat arpeggio. The E diminished our 7 arpeggio. Remember, think long tones first, and then the fundamental of air continues while you move fingers. This is the most taxing section of the etude. Journal your progress and start with small sections. You will not be able to perfect 8 measures in a day, not even in a week. It may take a month or even 6 weeks or 2 months to have this section ready for performance. Be patient and know that the juice is worth the squeeze. Journal your progress. This is the end of part 2. If I can be of assistance in your preparation for the all-region audition, please contact me at the phone number or email given on this slide. See you next time.